Hey guys, welcome back to the Saturday Scholars College Football Podcast channel. We are going to be filling out a March Madness bracket. I always do this every year. It's become a tradition on this channel and decided, hey, let's go and do it again. Last year, if you guys recall, I did pick the champion correctly. I picked UConn as a 4 seed to win the national championship. That was the first time in a long time that I finally picked a champion correctly since doing this. I've been doing brackets for a long time, but I finally got it. Called UConn as a 4 seed to win the Natty. Hopefully this year I can pick a champion correctly again. So without further ado, let's get into it. UConn and Stetson starting off here in the first round. Of course, we got to have UConn moving on. UConn slipping into that number 1 overall seed. FAU and Northwestern. 2 teams that can shoot the ball well. I'm going to give the edge to FAU. I like the matchup for them. I think they can turn it on in the tournament like they did last year when they made that Final Four run. I think you just don't doubt teams like that. So I'm going to give the edge to the Owls. San Diego State and UAB. UAB is a pretty weak 12 seed. I know they won the AAC Tournament championship, but San Diego State's got that top 10 defense like they do every year. Normally 5-12s are where you like to see some upsets, but I think this is a big mismatch. I'm going to go with San Diego State here. And then Auburn versus Yale. Kind of same situation here. The Ivy League teams usually give their opponents tough fights in the first round, but I'm going to go with Auburn here. I like Auburn a lot in this tournament in general. BYU versus Duquesne. Duquesne, kind of a weak 11 seed. They won the Atlantic 10 tournament championship, but I am going to go with BYU here. I like BYU as a very, very solid 6 seed. Illinois over Morehead State, like the Illini there, no slip-ups. Washington State and Drake. I'm going to go with Drake. Drake, I think, has the better offense. Wazoo's got the better defense. It's sort of a coin flip, but I'm going to go with Drake. I'm going to go with the team with the better offense. So give me them. Give me the Bulldogs. And then Iowa State versus South Dakota State. Cyclones coming in with the number 1 most efficient defense in the country. Give me Iowa State. Down here, we're going to have North Carolina moving on here. Mississippi State and Michigan State, the 2 MSUs going at it. This is going to be a pretty scrappy defensive battle. These 2 teams are very similar in terms of style. And I'm going to go with Michigan State to win. I think Michigan State just a slightly better team, but this one's a coin flip. I could see either one winning. I mean, it's an 8-9 after all, but yeah, some scrappy defensive play in this one for sure. St. Mary's and Grand Canyon. Now, Grand Canyon, I think, is going to be a popular upset pick here, but I'm going to go with St. Mary's. I'm going to go with the Gales. I think St. Mary's has had some tough draws in the tournament in recent years, and I've liked them a lot. I'm going to pick them to beat Grand Canyon this time around and move on as the 5 seed. Alabama and Charleston. Alabama's had such a good offense all season long. Their offense very fun to watch. High-scoring team. They've kind of been trending downward in the last few weeks, but they're going to beat Charleston here, I think. Clemson and New Mexico. Give me New Mexico. Give me Los Lobos. I think New Mexico is a very, very strong 11 seed. I think they're a little bit undervalued here. The committee seemed to really undervalue the Mountain West, in my opinion. I mean, the Mountain West got, I think, 6 teams in this year. It's a pretty good conference. So give me New Mexico over Clemson there. I'm pretty confident in this pick. Baylor, I'm going to take them over Colgate. Got to take the Bears over the toothpaste. Dayton and Nevada. This one I kind of struggled with, but ultimately I'm going to go with Nevada. Both these teams shoot the ball very well, so I think this will actually be a pretty entertaining watch. But Nevada's just a little bit more of a balanced team, so that's why I'm going to take the Wolfpack there. And I'm going to have Arizona over Long Beach State, U of A. I think this year you can beat the 15 seed. Last year you couldn't do it. But we shall see. I'm counting on you to get past the 15 this year. Up here, going to have Houston moving on over Longwood, Nebraska, and A&M. I'm going to go with Nebraska here. More well-balanced team. I like them a decent notch over A&M here in that 8-9 matchup. Wisconsin and James Madison. Now, this one's going to be the trendy upset pick that everyone's going to be picking. I'm sure James Madison is a very, very trendy pick right now to pull off the upset, and I'm gonna hop on that trend. Give me the Dukes of JMU to win this game. Hey, they got a good football program, and they're killing it in basketball as well. So give me James Madison to upset Wisconsin. I mean, all the ingredients are there. I like them a lot. Duke and Vermont. I've picked the Catamounts in the past to get these upsets, but not this year. I'm going to go with Duke. I don't think Vermont can beat Duke. Texas Tech and NC State. NC State is just a weird team this year. They've been so inconsistent. They just go through stretches where they play so well and they play very poorly. They, of course, won the ACC tournament, which came out of nowhere. And it's really a big team with a huge question mark coming into this tournament. I think a lot of people are going to pick them just because they're a hot team who won the conference tournament. But I'm going to buck that trend. I'm going to say Texas Tech moves on here. I'm going to go with Texas Tech, a little bit more stable of a pick if you ask me. Going to have Kentucky moving on over Oakland. Florida versus Boise State or Colorado. This one, as a Florida Gator alum, is very tough for me, to be honest, because Florida, we've been playing so well. We just lost Micah Handlockton to an injury. He's one of our best rebounders and defensive players, so that's tough. But we've been playing so well lately, and I'm going to pick us to move on, but don't get me wrong. I think Colorado especially, Boise State not as much, but Colorado kind of scares me here if they win that play-in game. But I'm going to roll with my Gators no matter what here. So give me Florida to move on. And then Marquette versus WKU. I'm going to have Marquette. Down here to the Midwest, going to have Purdue moving on. Purdue, I think, can beat the 16 seed. Utah State and TCU. This one, interesting matchup. I'm going to go with TCU here. I think they're the slightly better team in this 8-9 matchup. Gonzaga and McNeese. See, this little section right here gave me so much trouble because I really do think Samford and McNeese are both capable of pulling off upsets here versus Gonzaga and Kansas, respectively. I thought about picking both of them, but I thought, you know what, let's call it even here. I'm going to pick one over the other, and the one that I like the more is McNeese. McNeese is a pretty good team that shoots the ball very well. They're coached by Will Wade, who left LSU after that scandal, goes to a mid-major, and of course they're killing it. So I do think McNeese can pull off the upset here, but it's just tough because Gonzaga, I like Gonzaga coming into the tournament. Gonzaga, not the strongest year, but I actually do think they have a chance to make a run, and I feel like this is one of those years where they're kind of quietly going into the tournament that they can actually make a deep run. So I feel like it's going to be one or the other. Either McNeese pulls off the upset in the first round, or you're going to see Gonzaga make a run to like the Elite Eight and knock out Purdue or something like that. I really think it's one or the other for the Zags. Same with Samford. Samford is top 10 in the country in terms of three-point shooting and team shooting percentage. So it's an upset that I think could happen. Kansas definitely has been trending in the wrong direction, but I'm going to go with the Jayhawks. The Jayhawks still got a good defense, and Samford, if you look at their schedule, they just haven't played competitive teams. Or if they have played good teams, just not been competitive, unlike McNeese, where they've shown the ability to beat teams like Michigan. But don't get me wrong, if there's going to be some fireworks, it's going to happen right in here. South Carolina versus Oregon. I'm going to go with Oregon here. I think Oregon's a little bit of a value play. I think South Carolina is a weaker 6th seed, and Oregon just won the Pac-12 tournament, so trending in the right direction. Give me the Ducks to move on over the Gamecocks. Creighton and Akron, give me Creighton. And then Texas versus the winner of Virginia and Colorado State. Man, I think the committee really did a poor job this year of picking these last few teams in. I think Virginia has no business being in this tournament. I think St. John's should have been in the tournament, if you're going to ask me, or if at least not St. John's, it should have been Indiana State. But I know some teams get screwed over every year, but I think having Virginia in is a little egregious in my opinion. So with that being said, I like Colorado State a lot in this playing game. So I like Colorado State to win the playing game, and then I like them to move on to beat Texas. And these teams that play in the first four, I feel like generally win their first round matchup for whatever reason. It's been a trend over the last few years since the first four has been a thing. And I'm going to call that right here. If Colorado State wins the playing game over UVA, I'm going to take them to beat Texas. If UVA does win, then I'm going to go back and switch my pick to Texas, because I would pick Texas to beat Virginia. So that's my little caveat there. And then lastly, Tennessee and St. Peter's. Man, St. Peter's getting back in the tournament. Can they make a crazy Elite Eight run yet again? Sorry, it's not going to happen this time around, guys. I'm going to go with Tennessee. to move on there. So now on to the second round. FAU versus UConn. Same deal up here. Sorry, FAU, your Cinderella run comes to an end early this year. UConn is just way too good. I'm going to take the Huskies to win that matchup. And then San Diego State versus Auburn. San Diego State with that national championship run last year, which really kind of came out of nowhere. They kind of underperformed in the tournament in recent years. San Diego State definitely capable of making a run, but I'm going to go with Auburn here. I like Auburn a lot. Two good defensive teams in this matchup here. But give me Auburn. I like the Tigers in this matchup. BYU and Illinois. Sorry, Illini fans watching the channel. I'm going to go with BYU. Give me the Cougars in that minor upset there. I think it's a closer matchup than the seeding suggests, so give me BYU. And then Drake versus Iowa State. Give me Iowa State. Iowa State is just too good of a team. I don't think they'll get upset by Drake. Down here, UNC versus Michigan State. Told myself that I had to have a 1 seed get knocked out in the round of 32, and I think of all the 1 seeds, North Carolina is the weakest. So give me the Spartans to pull off this upset. I think of all the 1 seeds, as I just mentioned, UNC is the most likely to get upset in the second round by either one of these teams. I could really see Mississippi State or Michigan State doing it, but Michigan State definitely has a little bit more pedigree, a little bit more talent. So I think Izzo and the boys can get it done here and take out UNC early. And then St. Mary's versus Alabama. Give me St. Mary's. Give me a little chaos in this region here. Give me the Gales. I think St. Mary's, as I've said, has had such bad luck with really tough draws in recent years in the tournament. I think they can be an Alabama team that has been trending in the wrong direction over the last few weeks. So give me St. Mary's here. This is the Gales' time to shine. New Mexico and Baylor. If you thought the fireworks were done, you were wrong, because the 11th seed is moving on here. Give me New Mexico. New Mexico is a very balanced team. They are a very, very underseeded team in my opinion. This is not the makeup of an 11 seed. This is a makeup of a team that should be like a 6 or a 7 seed or an 8 seed. This is just straight up a value play. Give me New Mexico to upset Baylor. Arizona and Nevada. Arizona feels like in the tournament, they're kind of like Purdue. You're really walking on thin ice if you're picking them to go far, but I'm going to trust that Arizona wins this game. So I do not think Arizona will get upset early in the tournament this year. Up here to Houston and Nebraska. Give me Houston. Houston, just very, very good team all around. That defense, I think, will win them the game like it has all season long. James Madison and Duke. I'm not opposed to giving James Madison a potential Sweet 16 run here, but I'm going to go with Duke. I think Duke is still good enough to win this game. I could see Duke making it to the Sweet 16 fairly comfortably here, especially if this plays out the way that I have it. Down here to Texas Tech and Kentucky. This is be kind of an interesting matchup, but I'm going to go with Texas Tech. I think it's a good matchup for Texas Tech. They tend to play better against teams that have Kentucky's profile, ones that have a bad defense but can score a lot. I think Texas Tech is built to handle these types of teams. It's a good matchup for the Raiders, so give me Texas Tech. And then Florida versus Marquette. Give me the Gators. I think the Gators can upset Marquette. I don't think Marquette's a fairly strong 2 seed, and I think Florida's been playing well enough. I think even with the Handlockton injury, I still think they can win this game. So I'm pretty confident in Florida's chances to get to the Sweet 16. Purdue and TCU. I feel like a lot of people are going to pick this upset here just because it's Purdue, but I'm not going to do it. Purdue, Zach Edey, please guys, just get to the Sweet 16. I trust that you can do it. I know that's not what's happened in recent years, but I think they can. And then Kansas versus McNeese. When you pick these crazy first-round upsets, you can't get a little too overboard, and I'm not going to do that here. I'm going to pick Kansas, and I don't really feel comfortable with this pick. I really do think that Kansas or Gonzaga could make the Sweet 16 here out of this bracket, but this is the least confident I think I am in picking any section of the bracket. Oregon and Creighton. Gave some thought to this upset, but I'm going to stick with Creighton. I think Creighton's a very, very solid team. They don't get a whole lot of national love per se, but they're just a very solid team. They always seem to make the Sweet 16 at the very minimum every year, and I think they do it again here, taking out Oregon, who I think could definitely be an upset bid team. And then over here, Tennessee over what I would have as Colorado State. Give me Tennessee. Tennessee's very, very good team, very good defense. I like the Vols to move on. So now on to the Sweet 16. A lot of people are picking UConn to win the national championship. I picked UConn to win the national championship last year. UConn has historically been very good to me when I picked them, so this hurts me. I'm going to go with Auburn. Give me Auburn to upset UConn. I think that Auburn is an extremely undervalued 4 seed. Auburn has the makeup and the profile of a strong 2 seed. You could even make the argument they're just as good as a lower 1 seed. And I think it's just a really bad draw for UConn. I think UConn, as the number 1 overall seed, got completely hosed here. Some of the strongest teams in the tournament are in this region right here. And taking Auburn to beat UConn here is a good value play if you're going to pick this in your bracket. So that's what I'm going to do. And then down here to BYU versus Iowa State, a Big 12 matchup here. I'm going to go with Iowa State. Iowa State now has the number 1 defense in the country, according to KenPom. So give me these 2 teams. This is a pretty high-profile matchup for a 4 and a 2 seed, respectively. Michigan State and St. Mary's. This one I struggled with, but I'm going to go with St. Mary's. I think St. Mary's moves on. St. Mary's is a quietly pretty good team. They beat Gonzaga 2 out of 3 times. They've had some bad luck in recent years. I can see this happening. I can envision it. New Mexico versus Arizona. I so badly want to pick New Mexico here, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to go with Arizona. I really do think Arizona is a great team that can make a deep run. It's just the recent history of choking early in the tournament is what's making me kind of quiver a little bit, but recent history is not on my side here. Houston versus Duke. This is an interesting matchup, and I really think this could be a potential landmine for Houston in their path to a Final Four. But I'm going to take them to move on. So all in all, I think Houston got a pretty good draw with the teams in their region, but I think Duke would be probably the toughest out if they were to match up against them. And then down here between Texas Tech and Florida, I mean, I got to go with the Gators, man. Got to go with the Gators. Todd Golden and the team. It's a little bit of a homer pick, but I think objectively Florida is very capable of making a run like this, and that's what I'm going to have here, especially if they run into a team like Texas Tech, who I think they can beat here in the Sweet 16. Purdue versus Kansas. Now, I really do think Kansas is limited here in this tournament with health and everything, and I'm going to take Purdue to move on. If you were to take Gonzaga to win this first round matchup against McNeese and beat Kansas, I would heavily consider a Gonzaga upset over Purdue here in the Sweet 16. But because of the way that I have it, I'm going to take Purdue to advance to the Elite 8. And then Creighton versus Tennessee. Tough matchup here. 2 really good teams. Kind of a coin flip in my opinion, but I'm going to go with Tennessee. I think Tennessee's just a little bit better of a team. Terrific defense, so give me that 1-2 in the Elite 8. So now the Elite 8, I have a 4-2, a 5-2, a 1-2, and a 1-7. So Auburn versus Iowa State. This would be a hell of a defensive matchup, but the difference in this game is that Auburn has a top 10 offense in the country, and I think that will be the difference maker here. So if you like defense, this would be a great basketball game, but I'm going to have Auburn moving on to the Final Four. As I've said before, Auburn is a very undervalued 4 seed. And then St. Mary's versus Arizona. I'm going to call my shot here and say that St. Mary's makes it to the Final Four. I've said it multiple times, St. Mary's is due here. I like the Gales. I think they're capable of making a run, and you can see the theme here. I'm taking teams that play very good defense, limit three-point shooting, and can defend the perimeter well. I think St. Mary's is very much capable of making it to the Final Four, especially in this region. I think this is one of the weaker regions of the 4, and this is one where I can see some chaos potential. So I'm going to call my shot here and say that the Gales make it to the Final Four to face Auburn. And then up here, Houston and Florida. This one, I got to go with Houston. No doubt in my mind. I think Houston is set up very nicely here to make it to the Final Four. I really like Houston a lot. I think their path to get to the Final Four is one of the better ones of the 1 seeds, and I think Houston is due for a Final Four appearance this year. And then Tennessee versus Purdue. Struggled with this one, but I'm going to go with Purdue. Zach Edey came back to college. Like, this is such a big opportunity for them to make a run to the Final Four. You have to do it this year, or else when are you ever going to do it? I know Purdue basketball seems like it is cursed in these tournaments, but I'm pulling on that last string of hope for the Boilermakers that they can make a run to the Final Four. I mean, they are a terrific regular season team. I really think they can do it. I believe it can happen, so I'm going to pick it. So my Final Four is a 4, a 5, and then 2 1s. Over here, Auburn versus St. Mary's. I think St. Mary's is limited in this matchup. Give me Auburn. Auburn, I think, has the profile to make it to the national championship game. They are a very, very good team. They play tenacious defense, and they do have some divas on their team, if you ask me, but objectively, it's a pretty good team. Houston versus Purdue. I'm going to go with Houston. This is an elite defense versus an elite offense. It would be a fun matchup to watch. I think Houston could pull off the victory there in the Final Four in Glendale. And then I have Auburn versus Houston for the national championship. Give me Houston to win the national championship. I think Houston is set up very well here to cut down the nets. They were 30-4 in the regular season, 15-3 in Big 12 conference play. They pretty much demolished and ran through the Big 12 conference, which in my opinion was the best conference in the country this year from top to bottom. It was very impressive, and I think that Kelvin Sampson is just due. I think this Houston team in recent tournaments has been undervalued, and I think that this is a team that is due for a national championship run. And I would love to see Kelvin Sampson personally get that national championship for his team at Houston. LJ Cryer, Emmanuel Sharp, Jamal Sheed. I mean, that's as good of a trio of guards as you've got in the entire country. I really like this team, and the biggest thing for me is the path. You have to look at your champion's potential path to get to a national championship, and I think that this South region here is one of the weaker regions in terms of teams at the top. I think Marquette is a weaker 2 seed. You have Kentucky, Duke, I think, are weaker 3 and 4 seeds respectively. I think that Houston has one of the easier paths to get to the national championship game of the 1 seeds. And in terms of the total points scored, if we have these two teams facing off in a matchup, these would be 2 of the top defenses in the entire country. I believe it would be a lower scoring game. So I'm going to say that it would be about 120 points scored. It would be a pretty good defensive battle. So that's what I have as my bracket. Houston cutting down the nets. Let me know who your national champion is. Let me know who your Final Four teams are and who your upset teams are, who your Cinderellas are. I would like to hear it in the comments. So thank you guys for watching, and have a great day.